Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to a new edition of Urban Sentinel Live. Yes, it's Monday night, and what do we do on Monday night? We sit down and talk to a famous person for about 30 minutes to get their ideas and their thoughts on what's going on in this world. Uh, we just cover it all. But tonight we're coming on a serious note. We want to talk about what's going on in our community tonight. So I thought it would be good to have a friend of mine, Dr. James Dula, retired veteran from the Air Force, a community activist, to sit down and spend some time with us, and so we can discuss what's going on in the community. So, Dr. Dula, how you doing tonight? Glad to have you. Talk to us. How you doing?
Mr. Kearney, it's such a pleasure to be here with you tonight and to be able to talk about what's going on in our community. You know, I often say that it's our time to stand tall and to show out. We've been sitting back long enough.
Amen. Amen. Tell the audience give the audience a little background on you, a little life history.
Oh yeah, well let's start in the beginning. I'm originally from North Carolina. Grew up and ate bread down there to my 18th birthday, and was in the quite naturally, you know, that was during a time of separate but unequal, and was in the first desegregation class in North Carolina. From there, went in the Air Force and stayed for 30 years. Went in as a raw recruit, retired 30 years later as an Air Force major. I was a commander. My job was the commander for 18 of those 30 years. Went on from there and taught high school and taught at 3 different colleges and universities, served on 4 different college boards, and went on to be active in government, where I served as Health and Human Services Director for Prince George's County, and then went on to be the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. I believe that through hard work and perseverance, many things can be done.
Amen. And for the viewing audience that doesn't know the area too good around the Washington, D.C. area, and you're from California or wherever, Prince George's County is one of the largest, most populated Black counties in the country. L.A. County doesn't even have what we have. It's a very affluent county. You got a broad spectrum of people living in that county. You've got both sides of the economic spectrum living in that county, and it's a progressive county. And it's the word I was looking for, I can't figure it out right now. I'm getting a little old. That's why I got all this gray hair. But it's a testament. That's what I want to say. It's a testament to what Black people can do and how we can be in control and be large and in charge of what's going on in our community. So to get things started, we're facing a lot of challenges, Dr. Dula, in the country at this time. And for me, and you and I have both talked about it at times, where are the people at? Where are our young people at? Where are our voices at? You know, I'm getting to a point where I want to see the young people take the mantle, take the light, take the torch, whatever they got to take, and run with it. What is going on in our community, Dr. Dula? What is going on with our young people?
Well, you know, let me start with the fact that where you left off, Prince George's County is one of the most affluent majority counties in all of the United States of America, with almost 1 million people here, and with approximately 65% of it being African American. We have great communities. We have well-educated people. We have many great reasons to settle down and live here. We like to say we're the crown jewel, and the crown jewel means that we are here working together. And as Dr. King says, we're all in this boat together, and we're doing great things. But we still have a far piece to go. I often tell people that I came up the rough side of the mountains, but now that I'm at the top, I'm looking down and see there's still work to do. And I don't necessarily blame it all on the children. I look at the parents as well. I know when you and I were coming up, our parents were intricately involved with our lives. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they called us to dinner. We sat down and dined together. They were all in our business. How was
Mm-hmm.
school? You didn't say fine. They wanted to know in detail how your day was.
Mm-hmm.
And they would visit the schools and they would talk to the teachers. And you had better been straight up that day, or else there was going to be a price to pay when you return home.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, when we talk about our children today, and I taught high school for 5 years. When I retired, I was offered to come back to government at a very high rank, and I turned it down because I said I want to go teach our children about the lessons I've learned through traveling the world. And
Mm-hmm.
I taught high school, and then what I found out was in too many cases our kids are raising themselves. Uh, the parents are not talking to the children. Matter of fact, I often had parents to come to me and ask me to talk to their children because they couldn't talk to them anymore. And that started me to thinking. I said, when we stop talking to our children, we start losing the battle. And so I would often encourage those parents to sit down at the table. And if you couldn't sit down at the table like we did, take the child to McDonald's, sit down, talk with them. And then after a while, you won't have to talk anymore because they'll talk your head off. I know that through experience. That's how I raised my child. And I got to, how was your day? Fine. Uh, how's everything going? Fine. But I learned that when I took her out to a park and gave her a hamburger, that I learned a little bit more than I wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started telling the parents, I said, you have to start being more engaged in your children. If not, the children will lead you instead of you leading them. And so, what are we seeing today? Many children are out past curfew. Many children are doing things you don't want to see them do. Many children are not seeing us as we did when we came up, as do it for the sake of your community, do it for your race or whatever else, the positive lessons we learn. But we turn into a more of an individual culture.
Mm-hmm.
That song was, what have you done for me lately? I often said to people, when did we turn from a family of we are a family and RESPCT to what about me? And so we forgot to join hands and to teach our kids to join hands and
Mm-hmm.
to walk hand in hand. And so if we don't lead the children, they'll find a way to lead themselves. And that's what we're seeing today.
Yes, it's very disappointing. I know when we were talking last week, we were talking about the importance of our youth and young adults, millennials, understanding and knowing Black history. I mean, I think that's one of the things that is missing that would probably drive our young people and our millennials to excel at a higher standard than what they are if they were able to just look back and learn more about Black history, which is not being taught in our schools at any length of, as far as the books are concerned, and very few pages are given to Black history. And, so I think we really got to push on that too, to get them to understand where they've come from and what they have to do to get where they're going. It seems like we're in reverse right now. Instead of going forward, it seems like the society is trying to push us back into reverse.
Well, that's by design. Because once I teach you to read and write and think for yourselves, then you'll have your own mind. Once you have your own mind, you can start choosing your own direction. And once you choose your own direction, then you might see who
Mm-hmm.
who I am, and we don't want that to happen in some societies. Let's think back to the early days of history. Once we came across the Middle Passage, you weren't even allowed to speak your own language. You weren't even
Mm-hmm.
allowed to learn to be taught to read and write. You were supposed to do everything according to the way the master wanted you to do, because they understood that once you learn to read, once you learn to write, well, let's use a couple cases. Frederick Douglass, who taught himself how to read and write. And once he
Mm-hmm.
taught himself to read and write, look at the stature of a man he became. So if I can keep you fat, dumb, and ignorant, then then you're not a threat. So now we're seeing a backlash because Black people are really, really starting to exert their influence both at the voting polls and in other ways. So we've got to stop teaching Black history in our schools according to those that don't want to see it done, because they understand that once you know where you came from and you start figuring it out, then that's where your strength comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I taught African American studies in the schools, I often taught about their strength and unity. That's that is something that was always part of our history. Their strength in family. You saw, remember Kunta Kinte when he was born in Roots, the whole family was around. The ladies were there helping to labor. The men were on the outside. But as soon as the baby was born, he was handed to the dad. Dad can control and say, behold, the only thing greater than yourself talking about birth is God. So
Mm-hmm.
it began to teach that child a way to go. But in our society, if I can keep you from learning who you were, and I can sort of put a little Willie Lynch in there and start monitoring your footsteps and try to get you to argue against each other and keep you ignorant, then I can control you for a number of years. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing that old philosophy. And one that I often spoke about was the Southern philosophy that was professed by Southern Republicans at the time, Richard Nixon and Lee Atwater in the history books. Whereas if I can employ a strategy to keep them from trying to rise up to certain heights, then we can control them. And so education is a part of that. You teach a man where he came from, my goodness, their minds start saying, well, I can be great. Look at Queen Nzinga back in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, who rose up to be queen of her country and fought the Dutch for 50 years. And they were not able to come in and enslave her people. That's a woman, Queen Nzinga. You never hear about her. You hear about Bloody Mary and everybody else. What's wrong with Queen Nzinga? Because she was a strong Black woman, and through education comes strength. And so as you began to teach Black history, that I've done all across this country and in some other countries, uh, kids start to have pride in themselves. When they get pride in themselves, then they want to emulate those that they
Mm-hmm.
have that they learned about. So it becomes a point to where you get too big for your britches, as my grandmother used to say. So to answer your question, once we learn who we are and that you're the strongest of the strong, you're the descendants of those that came across that terrible middle passage, and they survived, then you understand where your strength lies, and that can be a danger to some parts of our society.
Very true. Very true. What will you contribute the reasoning behind a small segment of whites in the community fighting against the teaching of slavery, the real history? You know, my feeling is from 1619 on down to today, we need to know history, and we need to teach it. And we need to show the students and teach them about what happened in this country. You know, we can't sweep this under the rug. But there are a group of whites in the community that want to sweep everything under the rug. Case in point, the new Trumpster in office in Virginia um, got into a tick for tack conversation with his staff did with a young white 17-year-old Democrat teenager. He was concerned about them coming into the mansion, Youngkin and his family coming into the mansion and closing down the office that had been set up by Northam to study slavery, the reasoning behind slavery, to study this. You know, so what's the issue here? Why are they so scared? They're embarrassed about the world knowing that their grandparents, great grandparents, great great grandparents were racist. What is it?
Well, when I taught my Black history classes, I always taught that Black history is American history.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start taking bits and pieces out and you start changing things around, then you're distorting American history. And I think from the majority standpoint, uh, their point is we don't want to embarrass the kids, more or less, that had nothing to do with that period of American history. But I'm like this. I think it's a time when we all can sit down and see the wrongdoings of the time and learn together. This
Hmm.
I think that education should take place across the entire spectrum. Whereas we sit down, we discuss it, we learn from it, we see the fault about with it, and then we figure out a way that we're going to move forward instead of moving forward in a divided nation, and oftentimes based on race, and you know it and I know it. It should be a time to join hands to sit down and talk about the past and figure out a clearer path for moving forward in the future. But let's face it, a lot of that happens because the wrong people are voted into office. And when the wrong people are voted into office, then they have the right to set the new laws. And nation America being a nation of rules and of laws ruled by the majority, we have got to learn to go vote. And I'm sort of segueing into another topic because you had 8% of the black males vote for number 45 when he was in office, and he thanked them. But at the same time, what did we gain from it? We have got to vote our knowledge. We have got to learn who is running for office, what they stand for, and then vote based on what we have learned through research and changed America from a nation that only writes a certain portion of history, but wants to leave your history out. So I think that those that are advocating against teaching Black history, it's a shame because this is a time we should be teaching it, and I think that it would behoove America for us to learn, as I said earlier, about the past, so that we can make sure that we're not doomed to repeat it. Uh,
Hmm.
and and regardless how you think, racism has always played a part in this country. And I think that now we should have evolved into a nation that is that has moved beyond that.
Yeah, we should have. And I think what happened was with the last guy who called the White House his residence,
Yeah.
he took he turned it around because he gave voice to those ignorant individuals who had it on their mind to say what they wanted to say but were scared to say it, and he gave them the oomph to say things that had never been said before. And so now they feel like they can just run roughshod over top of America now and determine what's going to happen in America. You know, it's just like with the educational system. What conservatives are doing now, where we can't take over the county commissioners, we can't take over the city councils or anything like that. Let's focus on one group of people. Let's focus on our children. Let's focus on the educational system, and let's make changes there. Let's put our stamp on the educational system, and that's what's happening here in America now. And it's very disappointing that the voices that see things different won't come out and fight against these parents.
Yeah, it's every generation has its battles. My father had his battles in the 1930s and the 1940s. Uh, my generation, we had our battles. It was the civil rights movement.
Mhm.
It was Vietnam War. It was standing up for what we thought democracy was supposed to be. And this generation is in a battle now trying to fight for their identity because they don't know who they are right now. They have seen so much conflict. They have seen so much of America that wants to change who we are, whether it's autocracy or or otherwise. But it's a time in America we have to all be concerned because it's at a turning point, and we don't want it to really turn too much because we our fathers and forefathers fought for democracy. They fought for freedom and equality and justice for all. But right now it seems to be a battle between fascism and democracy, uh, freedom and justice for all versus freedom and justice for some. So we have to ask America once again, who are we as a nation? And if we're going to have a say in it, we've got to stand tall once again, as Dr. W.B. Du Bois said, to be heard. And the best way to be heard is at the voting polls and supporting those. It doesn't matter, black, white, red, green, it doesn't matter. Those that support the values of America and the Constitution of the United States. Because that's the Constitution that I defended for 30 years around this world, from Vietnam to Suriname. My commands went stretched far and wide. And I believe in the Constitution of the United States, just like those that were before me. I volunteered to lay my life down for this country. So does it hurt me when I see that there are those that would change the very foundation of who we are? Yeah. But so I think it's time for us, to answer your question, to once again look at ourselves, see who we are as an American people, and agree that history is history. We can learn from it, but we also have to move forward together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for everybody. And that's what we need to start talking about. And I think it will happen if we elders like myself and you, if we talk about it, if we interact with those that feel that America is the best country on earth, and we still have a long way to go. And I feel like if we just don't accept the negative views of some, but the positive views of most, I can see us moving forward together. But that's what we'd have to do. But you remember the old griots, the storytellers. Those are your elders sitting around the fire talking about this is history. Talk to children. Then the children rose up, and then they would become the new leaders. That's what we have to get back to. It doesn't matter what race you are, as long as you understand that America is greater than any one individual or any one group of people.
And I think people got to realize too, yes, the national elections are very important, but I think the most important elections are your local and state elections. That's where a lot of decisions are made that really affect your community. And it's not made in Congress or in the Senate, U.S. Congress or U.S. Senate. It's made in your state. It's made on your county level. And that's what we've got to really focus on. That's where the fight has got to be, and that's why I encourage people to run, especially for your Board of Education, because if you don't, even though here in Maryland, Board of Education's elections for the most part are nonpartisan, if you don't run and let your voice be heard, you're going to get a bunch of conservatives on there. They're going to start changing the curriculum, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're shooting for. Like I said, they can't control the commissioners. They can't control the city councils and things of that nature. So their thing is, these are nonpartisan elections. Let's get our agenda snuck into the Board of Education that way. Let's go ahead and run, because they're not going to run because they don't value the importance of having their voices heard when it comes to education.
Well, you've heard that old saying, all politics is local. So if you want to change things in the community where you live, you go out and you vote for the central committees. You go out and you vote for the school board. You go out and you vote for the councils, and you go out and you vote for your commissioners and your county executives. But I've often tell people, but if you don't vote, you don't have a say. And the bigger ticket is this: with all politics being local, don't wait for the presidential local election to vote. Vote, make a point to vote in all elections.
Yes,
that's your guaranteed right. And so we stop and think about it. With all politics being government being local, the very root of your community is at the lowest level, and that's where the laws are going to be made. That's going to affect you the most. So you wait and vote for the presidential election. You don't vote for the midterm election, yet things are happening in between. And then you're sitting back complaining, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Well, because if you sit home and don't go out and vote on election day, guess what? That vote is going to go to somebody.
Yeah.
It's going to go to somebody because the candidate you may have wanted didn't get that vote. So that's
right.
for the other person. So we've got to teach that lesson across the board.
Yeah.
That you've got to vote.
We got a lot of work to do. Got a lot of work to do. We got to keep on, and I want to make this country a better place for my grandchildren and for their children to come. So we got a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, I think we were on a good track until a certain person got into the White House, and that just threw a roadblock in what we were doing. And I think we've got to take the opportunity to try to turn it back around. But with so much going on, decisiveness going on in these states, mainly the red states where all these militias are popping up at, it's going to be we got a tough battle out there. Got a tough battle to overcome. And but I believe we did it one time, we can do it again. It's just a new civil rights movement.
Well, when you study your history, you think back to the end of the Civil War in 1865, and in 1870, if I remember correctly, after the Civil War, during that period, you had black men eligible to vote. 1867, eligible to vote. So between 1867 and 1870, they voted in record number. And what happened? You got people like Hiram Revels that was voted into the U.S. Senate. Well, once that happened, between 1865 and 1877, now you start the Reconstruction. And now that you have blacks sending blacks to the Senate and the House and the floors of Congress, that's when the backlash began. That's when those that didn't want to see blacks make significant gains began. That's during that period that poor Ida B. Wells had to run for her life because she had a business and she was successful at it and others didn't like it. So every time some advances had been made, there was always a backlash that kicked in. So we as a people have to understand that that is part of the history of America and figure out a way to get by that and learn from it and to be able to work together once again in the communities where we live to vote the right people in office that won't sell out, that will see the greater agenda, that will go run for office and get in office for the right reasons. Too often we sit at home, we don't vote. And then if you go and vote 20% or 15 or 18%, other people get in and whether it's a progressive or conservative, they get in. They may not have your points of view. And the next thing you know, your community is not what you thought it should be. So we have got to get off the sofa and remember the Hiram Revels story, remember the Reconstruction story and development of militias, and militias were nothing more than armed folks that were put into place to protect their community against subversives. And you know who that was. And so the more one would gain, the more others would form the backlash. And that's been part of our history. And it's still it's still present today. But the way to defeat it is to come together, go vote, and to make a difference. Stand, like Dr. Du Bois says, stand up and be tall to make a difference. We've got to learn that lesson and practice it. Got to.
Amen. Amen. Well, Dr. Dula, it has been a pleasure to sit down and talk with you in this fast 30 minutes. We probably could go on and talk a little longer, but I think we've had a good conversation here tonight. We've laid some seeds and hopefully those seeds will blossom, and people in the community will hear our voices and go on to make our communities a better place to live. And we've got to do that. I mean, we really got to work hard towards that. We can't, this is not the time for us to start having pity parties, okay? We've got to get up and roll up our sleeves. I mean, that's just the bottom line of it. Roll up our sleeves. So what's the final word that you want to give to the audience tonight before we sign off?
I would say, first of all, where you started, get in touch with your children, sit down and talk with them. Because once you stop talking to the children, you start losing the battle. If they're not going to teach history in the schools, teach it in the home, teach it in the communities. But get together, work together, and educate our children together. Don't be afraid of them. The only thing that you need to do is talk to them, and they will listen. And when the time comes for them to do the right thing, they will, because they'll hear your voice. But let's get together, work together. Unity is the key to success. And with it, sky's the limit.
Amen. 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 Now, tomorrow night, for those individuals who like the tougher side of the news, tomorrow night we're going to discuss on Real World News TV a simple subject. It's going to be a simple topic tonight. Tomorrow night, 10 seconds, the execution of a black man. Okay, and we're going to discuss the situation that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota last week, where a young man on a no-knock warrant was killed in 10 seconds from the time that they opened the door. 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a long time, okay, to fire off a gun 3 times and kill someone. So tomorrow night we want to discuss that, because I was saying last year, when in 2022 would something like this happen, where an officer would kill another young black man, you know? And it's happened. Here we are. We just got into February, and we've got a young man who's dead, lost his life on a no-knock warrant. So come back tomorrow night for Real World News TV with myself and Sherry Ann Tappett, 8:30 p.m. ET, 5:30 if you're on the West Coast. And listen to what we have to say, and you can chime in by going into the chat room. Again, I want to thank a great veteran, a great activist, a great leader in our community, Dr. James Dula, for being here with us tonight. This gentleman, he's on fire. He works tirelessly in our community to make sure things are getting done, but he has a special affection for veterans, and he works hard making sure that the veterans are coming home and that our home are getting the benefits and the things that they need to live a quality life each and every day. So again, Dr. Dula, I want to thank you for coming on, spending a little time with me on Urban Sentinel Live, which is a part of the Urban Sentinel magazine. So I done talked Dr. Dula into doing some articles and stuff, you know, so you're going to be hearing a lot more from Dr. Dula through the magazine Urban Sentinel. So everyone, take care. Have a good week. Be safe. Wear your mask. If you haven't gotten your shots, please get your shots. And I'll see you next Monday night on Urban Sentinel Live. Okay, take care. Thank you, Dr. Dula. Have a good week now.
My pleasure. Thank you now. Best wishes.